The ocean is my lifeblood, but trust? Trust is like the tide. It pulls you in, then leaves you stranded. I'm Elena, 42, a marine biologist in Monterey, California, where the Pacific's pulse beats through every moment of my day. For years, I've poured my soul into studying the sea, decoding its secrets, mapping coral reefs, and tracking whale migrations. Standing on my research boat, the Blue Horizon asterisk, I feel alive. The salty wind stings my face, waves crash against the hull, and the horizon stretches endless before me. It's not just a job, it's who I am. Every discovery, every dive fills me with pride, like I'm peeling back the ocean's skin to see its heart. My world isn't just the sea, though. There's Paul, my husband of 15 years, a mechanical engineer with a smile that used to make my knees weak. He's the guy who'd bring me coffee during late-night data analysis, who'd laugh at my terrible puns about fish. And then there's Mia, our 12-year-old daughter, all sharp wit and endless questions. "Mom, why do humpback whales sing?" she asked last week, her brown eyes wide as we pored over my research notes. I grinned, ruffling her hair, and launched into a lecture about whale songs until she groaned, "Okay, too much science." Those moments, Paul chuckling, Mia rolling her eyes, are my anchor. Our home in Monterey is small but warm, tucked into a hillside with a view of the bay. Picture this: a cozy dining room, the smell of roasted chicken, Mia's chatter about school, and Paul's hand brushing mine as we pass the mashed potatoes. Last night, we sat around the table, laughing as Mia reenacted her teacher's dramatic reading of Shakespeare. Paul leaned back, his laugh easy, his blue eyes catching the light. For a moment, everything felt perfect, like a postcard of the life I'd always wanted. But as I watched him, a flicker of unease crept in. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, his smile tightening just a fraction. He didn't pick it up, but his fingers twitched like he wanted to. I brushed it off, told myself it was nothing. Work stress, maybe. Paul's been swamped with projects lately, or so he says. But that flicker stayed with me, like a shadow under the water. I've always trusted Paul. He's the guy who held my hand through Mia's birth, who stayed up with me when I was frantic over a grant deadline. Yet lately, something seems off. He's been distracted, his answers clipped. "How was your day?" I asked yesterday, and he muttered, "Fine," without looking up from his laptop. I caught him smiling at his phone once, a private little smirk, and when I asked who it was, he said, "Just a coworker." I nodded, but my stomach twisted. Was I imagining things? I've been so caught up in my research, late nights, early mornings, that maybe I'm missing something right in front of me. I pushed the thought away, focused on the good, like tonight, when Mia dragged out her sketchbook to show me her latest drawing of a whale shark. "Look, Mom, it's got your name on it," she said, pointing to Elena scrawled in bubbly letters. I laughed, pulling her into a hug, and Paul joined in, his arm around us both. For a second, I let myself sink into it, let the warmth drown out that nagging doubt. But as we cleared the dishes, his phone buzzed again. He grabbed it fast, too fast, and stepped into the hall. I heard his voice, low, hurried, words I couldn't catch. My chest tightened, like the air had gone thin. I stood at the sink, scrubbing a plate harder than I needed to, the sponge squeaking against ceramic. Mia was upstairs, probably lost in her sketches, and Paul was still in the hall, his voice a muffled hum. I wanted to march over, demand to know who he was talking to, but I didn't. Not yet. I've spent my life studying patterns, currents, migrations, ecosystems, and I know when something's out of place. The way Paul's been acting, it's not just stress, it's a shift. A break in the rhythm of us. I dried my hands, staring out the window at the dark waves in the distance. The ocean never lies, but people? People hide things. I thought about the early days with Paul, back when we were broke grad students, sharing cheap tacos and dreaming about the future. He'd tease me about my obsession with the sea, call me his mermaid. I believed in him, in us, with every fiber of my being. But now that belief feels like a weight dragging me under. How long has this been going on? How many times have I ignored the signs, too busy with my work, too trusting to see what's right there? My hands clenched around the dish towel, knuckles white. I'm not some naive girl anymore. I'm a scientist. I follow evidence, not feelings. The worst part? Mia. She's sharp, picks up on everything. If something's wrong, she'll sense it, and I can't let her world crack open. Not yet. I took a deep breath, the salty air grounding me, and turned back to the dining room. Paul was back, slipping his phone into his pocket, his face smooth like nothing had happened. Everything okay? I asked, keeping my voice light. He nodded, flashed that easy smile. Yeah, just work? I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. As I climbed into bed later, the sheets cold against my skin, I stared at the ceiling, my mind churning like a storm at sea. The life I've built, my work, my family, my home, it's everything I've fought for. But what if it's all a lie? What if the man I've loved for half my life isn't who I think he is? I closed my eyes, the sound of waves faint through the window, and a bitter thought clawed its way up. I'm such a fool. I trusted that bastard for too damn long. The ocean's always been honest with me, its currents never hiding their pull. But Paul? He's been slipping through my fingers like water, and I'm only now seeing the ripples. A few months ago, I started noticing things, small, jagged cracks in the life I thought was solid. It's funny how you can convince yourself it's nothing, how you can drown out the truth with excuses. Work stress, I told myself. He's just tired. But the truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? And when it does, it stings like salt in a wound. Paul's always been a creature of routine. Home by 6, dinner with us. Maybe a beer on the porch while we talked about my latest dive or Mia's school projects. But around spring, that rhythm faltered. He started staying late, claiming big projects at the engineering firm. Client deadlines, he'd say, loosening his tie, his eyes darting to his phone. I nodded, tried to believe it, but the way he clutched that phone like it held state secrets made my skin prickle. Once I caught him in the kitchen, typing furiously, a half smile on his face. When I asked who it was, he flinched, shoved the phone in his pocket. Just a colleague, he muttered and changed the subject. I stood there, spatula in hand, feeling like I'd swallowed a stone. Then there were the trips. Paul, who used to hate traveling, suddenly had conferences every other week. Seattle, San Diego, even Chicago once. He'd pack his suitcase, kiss me goodbye, and promise to call. But the calls were short, his voice distracted, like he was somewhere else even when he was talking to me. I'd lie awake those nights, the bed too big, staring at the glow of Monterey's lights through the curtains. I remembered our early days when he'd drive me to the docks at dawn just to watch me board the asterisk Blue Horizon asterisk. He'd wave, grinning, and I'd feel like the luckiest woman alive. Now I wondered who he was smiling for when he was gone. Mia noticed it too, though I tried to shield her. She's got this knack for picking up on things like a tiny radar. One evening, while we were sorting through my research photos, her favorite after-school ritual, she tilted her head, frowning. Mom, why's Dad talking about your work with someone else? I froze, my hand hovering over a picture of a coral reef. What do you mean, sweetie? I asked, keeping my voice steady. She shrugged, picking at her nails. I saw a text on his phone when he left it on the counter. Something about your whale data. He was telling someone it was a valuable. My stomach lurched like I'd been pitched off the boat. Probably just a work friend, I said, ruffling her hair, but my heart was hammering. Why would Paul be texting about my research? That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of Paul sharing my work, my years of sleepless nights, my countless dives, my data, felt like a violation. I lay there, listening to the distant crash of waves, and something snapped. I had to know. When Paul was in the shower the next morning, his phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. My hands shook as I picked it up. I knew his passcode, our wedding date, or so I thought. But it didn't work. He'd changed it. My throat tightened, but I wasn't done. Later, when he left for a meeting, I grabbed his laptop, the one he never locks. My fingers flew over the keys, pulling up his email. And there it was, a thread with a name I didn't recognize. Asterisk Mark Hensley asterisk. A journalist from the looks of it. The subject line, asterisk Monterey research deal asterisk. I scrolled, my breath shallow as the pieces fell into place. Paul had been feeding this guy my data, migration patterns, coral studies, even my unpublished whale research for months. In exchange, a fat contract for his firm, a consulting gig that promised six figures. My work, my life's blood, sold like it was nothing. One email from Paul stuck out, cold and calculated. Her data's gold. You'll get exclusives. I get the deal. Win-win. Win-win? I slammed the laptop shut, my vision blurring. I'd been out there diving in freezing water, logging endless hours while my husband was hawking my soul for a paycheck. I stumbled to the couch, sinking into the cushions, my hands pressed to my face. Tears came, hot and unstoppable. But it wasn't just sadness. It was rage, raw and jagged, clawing up my throat. I cussed him out in my head. You bastard, I worked my ass off and you sold me out like that. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I thought of Mia, her innocent question about that text. How could he do this to us, to her? My research wasn't just my career. It was my legacy, something I wanted Mia to be proud of. And Paul had turned it into a transaction. I sat there in the dark, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Memories flooded in, unbidden. The day Mia was born, Paul holding my hand, whispering, "You're gonna change the world, Elle." The nights we'd stayed up, plotting our future, laughing about how we'd retire by the sea. Was that all a lie? Or had he changed, twisted into someone I didn't know? My fingers curled into fists, nails biting my palms. I wanted to scream, to confront him right then, but Mia's face flashed in my mind. She was upstairs, probably sketching whales, oblivious to the storm brewing. I couldn't let her see me break. I wiped my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. The ocean teaches you that. Control, even when the waves are crashing. I stood, pacing the living room, my mind racing. Paul would be home soon, all smiles and lies, and I'd have to play along. For now, but I wasn't the trusting fool I'd been. I'd spent years studying patterns, and I knew this one: betrayal. He thought he could play me, sell my work, and walk away clean. He was wrong. I glanced at the laptop, its screen dark, holding the truth like a loaded gun. I'd hold on to it, wait for the right moment. Because when I confronted him, I'd make damn sure he felt the weight of what he'd done. The ocean's a brutal teacher. Calm one minute, savage the next. It doesn't care about your plans or your pain. Neither did Paul, apparently. After finding those emails, I carried the betrayal like a stone in my chest, heavy and cold. I didn't confront him right away. I couldn't, not with Mia's world hanging in the balance. Instead, I played the part, smiling at breakfast, asking about his day, all while my mind churned like a riptide. I needed proof, a plan, something to pin him down. But more than that, I needed to face him on my terms, where I was strongest. The sea. I invited Paul on a research trip aboard the Blue Horizon Asterisk. Just us, I said, forcing a grin over coffee one morning. Like old times. His eyes flickered, surprise, maybe suspicion, but he nodded. Sounds good, Elle. I saw the lie in his smile, the same one he'd been wearing for months. Mia begged to come, but I hugged her tight and said, "Next time, kiddo, stay with Aunt Jen." I couldn't risk her being there when the truth broke. As we drove to the docks, the sky was heavy, clouds piling up like a bruise. The forecast had warned of rough weather, but I didn't care. Let the storm come. It matched the one inside me. Out on the water, the Blue Horizon Asterisk rocked gently at first, waves slapping the hull. I busied myself with equipment, checking sonar, logging coordinates, while Paul leaned against the railing, scrolling his phone. The air was thick, salt and tension mixing. I glanced at him, his face lit by the screen, and my stomach twisted. How long had he been selling me out? How many lies had I swallowed? I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, and steered us farther out. The horizon darkened, clouds swallowing the sun. Looks rough, Paul called, pocketing his phone. You sure about this? I nodded, my voice steady. I've handled worse. Then the storm hit. It wasn't gradual, a sudden howl of wind, waves rearing like wild horses. The boat lurched, throwing me against the console. Rain lashed the deck, cold and relentless. Paul stumbled, grabbing the railing, his face pale. "Elena, we gotta turn back," he shouted, but the sea didn't care. Neither did I. I fought the wheel, muscles burning, as the Blue Horizon pitched. Equipment slid, crashing to the deck. A wave broke over the bow, soaking us both. My hair plastered to my face, salt water stinging my eyes, but I held on. This was my domain, not his. Paul scrambled to secure the gear, his curses drowned by the wind. I saw fear in his eyes, real fear. And for a second, I felt a grim satisfaction. Let him feel helpless. Let him know what it's like to be betrayed by something you trusted. Another wave hit, and the boat tilted hard. Paul slipped, slamming into the railing, and I grabbed his arm, pulling him back. Instinct, not love. "Stay low," I yelled, my voice raw. We were in it now, no turning back. The storm was a beast, and we were its prey. In the chaos, something broke loose, not the boat, but Paul. As we wrestled a tarp over the equipment, he slipped again, and his phone skidded across the deck. The screen lit up, a text flashing. *Mark, deals set, her data's ours. My blood ran cold, colder than the rain. I lunged for the phone, but Paul got there first, snatching it up. "Give it to me!" I screamed, the wind swallowing my words. He froze, eyes wide, like a cornered animal. And then, in the roar of the storm, he cracked. "If I hadn't sold your research, I'd have lost everything," he shouted, his voice breaking. "The company was sinking, Elena. I needed the money." The truth hit harder than any wave. I staggered, gripping the wheel for balance. "You sold my work for your company?" I yelled, my throat burning. "You betrayed me for money?" He didn't answer, just stood there, drenched and shaking, the phone clutched in his hand. Rage surged through me, hot and blinding. I wanted to shove him overboard, let the sea take him. But another wave crashed, and the boat lurched, snapping me back. We weren't done fighting, not each other, but the storm. "Move!" I barked, shoving past him to secure the helm. He followed, clumsy but desperate, tying down ropes, checking the bilge pump. We worked in silence, the storm screaming around us. Hours later, the wind eased, the waves settling into a sullen chop. The sky was still gray, but the worst had passed. I slumped against the console, soaked, exhausted, my hands trembling. Paul sat on the deck, head in his hands, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The phone lay beside him, screen cracked, but still glowing with that damning text. I picked it up, my fingers numb, and read it again. "Her data's ours." My life's work, my passion, reduced to a deal. I looked at Paul, and all I felt was ice. "You're done," I said, my voice low, steady. "I'll never forgive you." He lifted his head, eyes red, mouth opening like he wanted to explain. "Elena, don't." I cut him off, sharp as a blade. "You don't get to talk your way out of this." I turned away, focusing on the horizon, steering us back to shore. The sea was calming, but inside me the storm still raged. I thought of Mia, her drawings, her trust in us. Paul had broken that, broken us for a payout. My hands tightened on the wheel, resolve hardening like coral. He'd pay for this. Not in the storm, but in the wreckage of what came next. The Blue Horizon cut through the waves, carrying me toward a fight I was ready to win. The sea gives and takes, but it never lies. Paul did, and now I'm picking up the pieces of the life he shattered. After that storm on the Blue Horizon after his confession roared louder than the waves, I didn't scream or cry. I went cold, like the ocean depths where no light reaches. We made it back to shore, the boat battered but intact, unlike us. Paul tried to talk, mumbling apologies as we docked, but I walked away, my boots heavy on the pier. His words were as useless as a torn net. All I could think about was Mia, how I'd protect her from this mess, how I'd rebuild what he'd broken. The divorce was quick, brutal. I sat in a sterile lawyer's office, pen in hand, signing papers that ended 15 years of marriage. The room smelled of coffee and ink, and when I scrawled my name, a weight lifted, but another settled in its place. relief mixed with pain, like salt in a wound. I got full custody of Mia, no contest there. Paul didn't fight it, maybe because he knew he'd lost any claim to her trust. "You're her mom," he said, voice flat when we met to finalize things. I stared at him, this stranger I'd once loved, and said nothing. What was there to say? He'd sold my work, my soul, for a deal. I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me, and didn't look back. But the fallout didn't end with Paul. His betrayal rippled outward, poisoning everything I'd built. The emails I'd found led to a bigger mess. My research, my whale migration data, my coral studies, splashed across a national outlet credited to that hack journalist, Mark Hensley. My colleagues called, voices tight with pity or suspicion. "Elena, how'd this happen?" they asked, and I had no answer, not one I could stomach. My name, my reputation dragged through the mud. Grant applications I'd spent months on were rejected. A university that had courted me for a guest lecture series went silent. Whispers circled. Asterisk. Did she leak it herself? Was she careless? I wanted to scream. Asterisk. It was Paul. He screwed me over. But I didn't. I sat in my office, staring at my laptop, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. I'd lost so much because of him. Too much. The worst came when a corporate lab, one I'd collaborated with, threatened to sue. They claimed my leaked data compromised their investments. My lawyer said we could fight it, but the legal fees alone would bankrupt me. I sat at the kitchen table that night, bills piled high, my head in my hands. Mia was asleep upstairs, her whale drawings tacked to the fridge. I looked at them, her careful lines, her bubbly handwriting, and my chest ached. Asterisk, I lost everything because of you, Paul, I thought, bitter as bile. My career, my credibility, all for his greed. I wanted to hate him forever, to let that anger consume me, but I couldn't. Not with Mia counting on me. She was my anchor, my reason to keep going. One evening, after a brutal day of emails and lawyer calls, Mia climbed onto the couch beside me, her sketchbook in hand. "Mom, you okay?" she asked, her voice small. I forced a smile, but she saw through it. She always does. "I know about Dad," she said, looking down. I heard you and Aunt Jen talking." My heart sank. I'd tried to shield her, but she was too smart, too observant. Before I could speak, she threw her arms around me, her cheek warm against mine. "You're so strong, Mom. I believe in you." I held her tight, tears prickling, and in that moment, I knew I'd fight through anything for her. I started rebuilding piece by piece. I took on smaller projects, freelance consulting, anything to keep the lights on. I reached out to old colleagues, swallowing my pride to explain what Paul had done. Some turned away, but others listened, offered support. A grant here, a reference there. I spent nights at my desk, rewriting proposals, scrubbing my data to ensure no more leaks. It was grueling, like diving in a storm, but I kept going. The ocean had taught me resilience, how to hold my breath when the pressure's crushing. I wasn't done yet. Mia helped in her own way. She'd sit with me, sorting through photos from my dives, asking questions about corals or sharks. "You're like a superhero, Mom," she said once, grinning as we pinned a new map to my office wall. I laughed, but her words stuck. I wasn't a superhero, just a woman clawing her way back. Still, her faith in me was a lifeline. We'd walk along the Monterey shore sometimes, her hand in mine, the waves whispering secrets. I'd tell her about the sea, about how it survives every storm. "Like us," she'd say, and I'd nod, my throat tight. Paul was gone, living somewhere in San Francisco last I heard, working some desk job. I didn't care. My anger at him hadn't faded, but it wasn't the fire it used to be. It was a dull ache, a scar I'd carry but wouldn't let define me. I looked at Mia, at the life we were building, and knew I'd made the right choice. The lawsuits, the lost grants, the whispers, they hurt, but they wouldn't break me. I was back on the asterisk Blue Horizon asterisk last week, checking equipment, plotting a new dive. The sea stretched out, vast and unyielding, and I felt it again, that spark, that purpose. I wasn't whole yet, but I was getting there. For Mia, for me, I'd keep fighting, no matter how deep the water got. The ocean's a mirror. Sometimes it rages, sometimes it's still, but it always shows you who you are. I've weathered my storms, and now, standing on the deck of the asterisk Blue Horizon asterisk, I see myself clearly again. The sun's rising over Monterey, painting the waves gold, and the air's crisp, salty, alive. My life's like the sea. The biggest tempests pass, and what's left is calm, hard-earned, and precious. I'm not the woman I was a year ago, broken by Paul's betrayal, drowning in the wreckage. I'm Elena, 42, marine biologist, mother, survivor, and I'm enough. It's been 6 months since the divorce papers, since the lawsuits and whispers tried to sink me. Mia and I are carving out a new life, just the two of us, in our little hillside home. The dining room's still warm, filled with her laughter and my half-decent cooking. Burnt tacos are our specialty now. She's 13, growing too fast, her questions sharper, her sketches fiercer. Last week, she showed me a drawing of a whale breaching, waves exploding around it. "That's you, Mom," she said, grinning. "Breaking through." I pulled her into a hug, my heart full, and thought, "Asterisk kid, you're my reason for everything." I'm back in the field too, piece by piece. The corporate lab dropped their lawsuit after I proved Paul's role in the leak. My lawyer's worth her weight in gold. My reputation's still bruised, but I'm rebuilding it, one dive at a time. I landed a small grant to study local coral bleaching, and last month I presented at a conference in Santa Cruz. The room was half empty, but those who stayed listened, nodded, asked questions. "You're back," a colleague said afterward, clapping my shoulder. I smiled, said nothing, but inside I felt the tide turning. My work, my sea, it's still mine. No one, not Paul, not the doubters, can take that away. Mia's my partner in this new chapter. She comes with me on the asterisk Blue Horizon asterisk sometimes, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, asking about everything: currents, plankton, why sharks don't sleep. I teach her the way the ocean taught me: to watch, to question, to stand firm. "You gotta be tough," I told her last weekend, showing her how to secure the sonar. She smirked, mimicking my stance, hands on hips. "Like you, Mom," I laughed, ruffling her hair, tougher. But she's learning, not just about the sea, but about life. I tell her the truth now, about Paul, about how people can hurt you, about how you keep going anyway. She listens, her eyes steady, and I know she's stronger than I was at her age. The anger at Paul, it's faded, like a wave smoothing out. He's a ghost now, someone I hear about in passing. Living in San Francisco, scraping by, no longer the man I married. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes energy, and I'm saving mine for what matters. Paul, I think sometimes, scoffing to myself. Asterisk screw him. Mia and I are doing just fine without him, better even. We've got our routines: pizza nights, beach walks, late night talks about her dreams. She wants to be an artist or a scientist, maybe both. Our life's smaller now, but it's ours, built on truth, not lies. Yesterday, I stood on the asterisk Blue Horizon asterisk, the deck steady beneath my feet. The sea was glass, reflecting the sky, and I felt a peace I hadn't in years. I thought about the storm, the one out here and the one inside me. Both nearly broke me, but they didn't. I'm still here, charting my course. Mia was below deck, sketching, humming some pop song off key. I called her up, pointed to a pod of dolphins arcing through the water. "Look," I said, and she gasped, her face lighting up. We watched them leap, free and wild, and I felt it, that spark, that love for the sea that's carried me through everything. I'm teaching Mia to love it too, but more than that, I'm teaching her to love herself. "You're enough," I told her last night, tucking her in. She smiled, sleepy, and mumbled, "So are you, Mom." I kissed her forehead, my chest tight, and knew she was right. The ocean's my home, my truth, but Mia's my heart. Together, we're unstoppable. As I steer the asterisk Blue Horizon asterisk back to shore, the wind's gentle, the sun warm on my face. I lift my chin, letting the sea's rhythm ground me. Paul's gone, the past is done, and I'm not looking back. My life's not perfect. Bills still pile up and some colleagues still whisper. But it's mine. I've got my work, my daughter, my strength, and that's more than enough. I glance at Mia, sketching furiously, her hair catching the light. "We're good," I think, a grin tugging at my lips. Asterisk damn good.